Hello, all y'all out there in Radio Land. It is once again that time of the week where me and some other Hoodrat strategists come onto your radio dial and talk about what the mainstream media is not talking about. We interview activists locally, at the international and national level, talk about those news stories, again, from all of the above that I just forementioned. And in general, we try to dig underneath the headlines, talk about what the establishment is not talking about, and generally call them out on their BS. It is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR FM. As always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 FM, WIDR Kalamazoo, or Western Michigan University, no matter how dope or insightful they may be. So, thought I'd start the show by talking about something that, we never really got around to talking about in a political frame last week, or the week before, as we were actually gone helping out with the Code Blue emergency shelters. And it's that idea around what is causing this peculiar and very specific cold weather that we've experienced the last few weeks. In particular today, it is yet another snow day at Western Michigan University, which, again, is fairly unprecedented. Back in my day, when I went to Western twixt the years of 2006 and 2010, we only had about one snow day in my whole 4 years there. Sorry, early 30s is not that old. Anyway, I wanted to kind of take a little bit of time and talk about the weather we've been experiencing from a climate change lens. And I think a lot of us, if you didn't know the specific science behind why or how climate change is influencing the polar vortex and this bizarre kind of cold, warm, snap back and forth weather we've been experiencing, thought we'd take a moment to talk about that on the show today. So I found a scientific article. This is from Inside Climate News. This was actually published 2 years ago. So this isn't even referencing the polar vortex we just had, but still as relevant. But it's ice loss in the polar vortex, how a warming Arctic fuels cold snaps. And this is by Bob Berwin, and it was written back in September 28th of 2017. So new research shows that some northern regions have been getting hit with these extreme cold spells more frequently over the past 4 decades, even as the planet as a whole has warmed. While it may seem counterintuitive, the scientists believe these bitter cold snaps are connected to the warming of the Arctic and the effects that the warming is having on the winds of the stratospheric polar vortex high above the Earth's surface. So, by the way, I see that we're getting a phone call. Actually, we'll have to wait until our next break to take it. Also, just to note to our listeners, there's no way for us to actually play your calls on air. But whoever is calling, want to let you know, try calling back around 6:30. That's usually when we'll do our first break. And if you have something to add to this, we'd love to hear it. If you are some reactionary who's going to say, oh, well, it's cold, there's no such thing as climate change, then please do not waste my ear space with that reactionary garbage. But back to the article here. Sorry. Here's what scientists involved in the research think is happening. The evidence is clear that the Arctic has been warming faster than the rest of the planet. That warming is reducing the amount of Arctic sea ice, allowing more heat to escape from the ocean. The scientists think that the ocean energy that is being released is causing a weakening of the polar vortex winds over the Arctic, which normally keep cold air centered over the polar region. And this is really the key thing. That weakening is then allowing cold polar air to slip southward more often. The polar vortex has always varied in strength, but the study found that the weaker phases are lasting longer and coinciding with cold winters in northern Europe and Russia. The shift toward more persistent, weaker states of the polar vortex lets Arctic air spill out and threaten Russia and Europe with extreme cold, said the study's lead author, Marlene Kretschmer, a climate scientist with the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research. The trend can explain most of the cooling of Eurasian winters since 1990. Some other scientists aren't as sure that melting sea ice affects the polar vortex so strongly. They think other factors like long-term variations in sea surface temperatures like El Nino and changes in the tropics might play bigger roles. And just going on a little bit on the kind of research, the research methodology behind this. So it was Kretschmer and her colleagues focused on the region from Scandinavia through Siberia, where winter snow cover has increased and average winter temperatures have dropped since 1990. Although I should note, although that was the basis of their study, similar trends have been found here in Canada and the United States. And if you've lived in Michigan any number of years, I don't know if I necessarily need to give you like stats and data on that. You've pretty much you've felt it. So the study tracked changes in the polar vortex in the month of December and January between 1979 and 2015, and concluded that the polar vortex is primed for extreme cold outbreaks for longer stretches, from 5.3 days during the first half of the study period to 14.1 days in the second half. During the same time, average winter surface temperatures in northern Eurasia declined. And I did just want to mention, so it does mention, this particular article mentions it specifically. The picture is not as clear for North America, said Jim Overland, an oceanographer with the NOAA, who was not involved in the study. Natural year-to-year variations in weather still masks the global warming signal to some degree, he said. You can take one view or another, but the research helps make people think that the effects about the effects and how to forecast them. What we know for sure is the Arctic is warming and losing ice, and the forcing is there, he said, referring to the potential effect of melting sea ice on weather patterns. And, it really strikes me, this article really was not written that long ago, a mere 2 years. And already, in that 2-year time, we are starting to see these patterns become more and more obvious, particularly here in North America, also Russia and Europe as well. What you might not know is right before we got our polar vortex, Russia was also experiencing unusually cold weather. We're talking negative 40, 50 degrees Celsius. So, it is truly alarming how much this is really expedited in the last couple of years. And just to really shrink it down to the bullet points, just so next time you're with your MAGA hat wearing uncle or aunt, here's how it breaks down. The Arctic, because of the Arctic is warming, the sea ice is reduced. When the sea ice is reduced, more heat escapes from the ocean. And when that ocean energy is released, it weakens the polar vortex over the Arctic, which causes it to slip down into our neck of the woods. So that is how climate change makes the polar vortex even worse. It's great, the more you know. So moving on from that, I did want to talk a little bit about some local issues. And this is kind of following up to something we talked about, I believe it was either last week or 2 weeks ago. But Mary Balkema found herself in some hot water. Mary Balkema is the county treasurer. She's kind of known in the area as the resident Trumpster. She was a Trump delegate back in 2016. She has a photo op with Joe Arpaio. She is kind of a favored punching bag of the left here in Kalamazoo. She's an unusually hard right conservative amongst a county and city that leans pretty liberal. However, I do want to make sure it's not just that virtue signaling that makes Mary Balkema a problematic figure who has, got, I think, justifiably gotten the nickname Scary Mary. She also has been shown to engage in discriminatory housing practices. There was a big story several years ago about her being sued by an elderly blind black gentleman who was unjustly evicted. There were even documentation of Mary Balkema asking if he was black before evicting the guy. So yeah, and also there have been accusations. There's a kind of accusations of pay to play as far as how she uses the Kalamazoo County Land Bank, which under our local law is under her jurisdiction as treasurer. However, the county commission has decided to basically go push for answers about Mary Balkema specifically now that she's under legislation under investigation, not legislation, under investigation by the state. So I'll go ahead and read a bit from this article. It was from November 6th. We didn't have enough time to cover it last week, so I wanted to make sure that we talked about it a little now. So I'll just read a bit from the article. The board voted 10-1 on Tuesday to delegate County Administrator Tracy Moore to identify questions about the treasurer's responsibility as the foreclosing governmental unit and to require Balkema submit a written report under oath within 45 days. Rogers, who is the current board chair, said the motion was not directly related to an ongoing Michigan State Police investigation into accounting abnormalities in the treasurer's office. I think they are two different tracks, Rogers said. I have been a commissioner with this board for 6 years, and I have had some of these same questions for 6 years, and we've asked past administrations and leadership. Finally, there is the will from leadership to look into this. And hold on just a sec. All y'all out there, I want to check and make sure one of my co-hosts isn't at the door. I thought I heard something. Give me just a sec. All right, never mind. I guess I must be hearing things in my old age. Anyway, Rogers said that one of the major questions is what happens to properties that are not sold at foreclosure auctions. Balkema maintains that state law is silent on what she can or cannot do with a property held by her office. Rogers said the board should be more involved in decisions to return foreclosure properties to the tax base. It should be a partnership and a dialogue, Rogers said. And, excuse me. And, going on, it talks a little bit more about, this was a big issue last year. We're talking about using the Delinquent Tax Revolving Fund, which ensures taxing jurisdictions receive property tax payments on time. The treasurer loans the expected amounts to jurisdictions like cities, townships, libraries, and schools, then collects late payments from property owners. Last fall, the board discussed whether to transfer $500,000 from the fund to housing assistance. Balkema objected at the time, saying it would make it difficult to replace late tax revenue. The Tax Reversion Fund is comprised of foreclosure fees and proceeds from property sales. So let's go down a little bit more and describe a little bit more about the context of this. So it's mentioned Mary Balkema's under investigation. So let's talk about what that actually means. On September 7th of last year, Kalamazoo County Counsel Elizabeth White met with Michigan State Police and Prosecutor Jeff Getting's office to discuss financial transactions involving the Treasurer's Office and County Land Bank. State Police opened an investigation after White... Oh, sorry. Excuse me. after White provided records of home foreclosures, auctions, and county expense accounts. She said reviewed county records and brought her concerns to Getting, who referred to the Michigan State Police. The police investigation seeks to settle questions about whether the treasurer acted illegally while financing property redevelopment through the foreclosure process. Nearly 800 pages of investigative documents released to MLive through the Freedom of Information Act show Balkema paid a single contractor almost $500,000 for work on property since 2011, allowed contractors to avoid paying sales taxes by using county credit accounts, and used proceeds of property sales to buy thousands of dollars in outdoor furniture, clothing, and transportation to a conference in Wisconsin. Questions have also been raised about the transfer of properties to Balkema's church and a nonprofit that employs a county commissioner. So, anyway, this goes into a lot of things. I wanted to talk a little bit about how I think it's a good thing that the county commission is stepping forward to basically look through some of these records themselves. For far too long, what we've basically had is a situation where Mary Balkema has this kind of do what thou wilt approach to the land bank. She's somebody who she really views the land bank as belonging to her, and to her having sole jurisdiction and kind of power over this land bank. Something that's been talked about a lot in the last few weeks, particularly as we've run into these housing emergencies, be it with the extreme polar vortex that came in and protecting our homeless population, or last week when we had Issa Smith on to talk about her particular situation. This is an issue that's been coming up a lot. It's been coming up again and again, and one of the kind of important background questions is what to do with Mary Balkema being in charge of this land bank, who, again, she decidedly is not abiding by any sort of housing first policy, and in fact is looking at the land bank more as a profit-making enterprise, be it for herself or for the county. It's this whole ideological mismatch, kind of viewing the county like a business, not too dissimilar from our president, when really the objective of any land bank should be to fix, repair, and turn over houses as quickly as possible to the people who need them. That is one of the main conflicts at the heart of this story that you're not really going to hear from a lot of the local mainstream outlets. Is why should we tolerate, why should we stand having someone in office who does not view themselves as the representative arm of the people of Kalamazoo County, but views her ownership, her control of the land bank as ownership, who views it as an amenity for her place in office rather than a responsibility to the voters of Kalamazoo County. Another thing that this really brings to light is kind of the demand for transparency and trying, and you can hear it in what Julie Rogers is saying, is this idea that we should open up the land bank a little bit more, make it something a little bit more democratic. I think that's something that we should really push for, and something that really doesn't get talked about a whole lot. Again, we talk a lot about housing first on the show. We talk about the fact that there are more empty houses in this city than there are homeless folks, houseless folks. But at the root of it, you can't really act on those ideas until you get to the root. What is holding this idea back? Chiefly, it is Mary Balkema and the way she views and operates the Kalamazoo County Land Bank. And these associated corruptions that she is being investigated for all tie back to the idea of engaging in nepotism, engaging in pay-to-play, alleged pay-to-play tactics, or not tactics, but practices, I guess would be a better way to define it. But, let's be clear. Even if, Mary Balkema is completely exonerated and she didn't do anything legally wrong, again, the land bank is being operated in a very autocratic, very non-communal way, very non-democratic way. And I think that's something we fundamentally need to change, whether we have Scary Mary as county treasurer or not. Now, whether, this chain of events will lead us to a place where we can suggest that, or that can be put there, that remains to be seen. But I would advise and highly recommend to local activists that this could be a potential choke point in order to get us from A to B. This could be a way to pry open that, to not to mix my metaphors too much, but pry open the boards of possibility to getting a more democratically controlled land bank that is not in the hands of one specific county treasurer and let's be clear with Mary Balkema, with the dubious motives, with self-serving motives. So, anyway, I think with that, let's go ahead and take a quick little break. Y'all are listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution.
not be apparent, but hunger is a rather prominent issue amongst the student body of Western. The Invisible Need Project is a multifaceted initiative that's aimed to help struggling students.
Every 2 weeks, generous people donate their food to the pantry located in the Fawn Student Service buildings or other drop-off locations. All you need to do is grab a reusable bag and grab whatever food you need to help sustain yourself. If anyone's unsure when their next meal will be, or if you have a little extra food you'd be willing to donate, the food pantry is your place. If you're looking to help donate, become a volunteer, or just learn more, call 269-387-4742 or email dosa-inp@wmich.edu for details.
Hey, what?
Oh, what, Lawrence? I'm sorry.
Yo, we back. It's the Hoodrat Strategist radio program. A wild Lawrence has appeared. Everybody, how are you doing? While Andy was handling some business on the phone. Yeah. And
by the way, real quick, he just asked me who provides the music for this program.
Yeah.
This is Sid Redlin. You can find him on SoundCloud. We're playing the live at 1:16:18 at Deep Space Nine. We used to play like electronic dance music on the show, and then there's like this whole copyright rule. So if you're a local musician and you make stuff without vocals, let us know. We'll feature it on the program.
You got some dope instrumentals. Let's drop some of that stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah, seriously. You got some beats. Let us know.
Yeah, you got support your local talent, folks. Yeah. Support your local people. Speaking of support, I know that you wanted. I touched on this on my Facebook page. I know you probably touched on it too. Democrats, what happened to unity? What happened to unity, and what happened to us talking about facts and facts over feelings? What happened to that? Because all of the backlash that I've seen when it comes to Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and calling the statements that they said anti-Semitic is not only a stretch, but it ignores real anti-Semitism that actually happens in our country. For those who do not know what we're talking about, over the weekend, Ilhan Omar got into Glenn Greenwald tweeted something about Israel's influence in America when it comes to lobbying and money and politics, and how Omar said, it's all about the Benjamins. Mm-hmm. So she's referencing a hip-hop song. She wasn't talking about Benjamin Netanyahu. She wasn't talking about Jewish people. She was talking about how a lobbyist PAC in Washington uses money and politics to influence our democracy and influence our policies. And then when somebody pushed back on her, she said AIPAC. AIPAC is not the only pro-Israel lobbyist group in the country. They're not even the only pro-Jewish group in the country. But we talked about this on the show before. Talking about policy that Israel does that negatively affects people around the world is different than talking about I'm anti-religion. Or criticizing a religion. And if you want to criticize a religion, you can. There's nothing wrong with that. We criticize the Catholic Church all the time.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I criticize the churches that I go to and black churches all the time. The problem is when you start into some people's credit, saying that Jews influence people with money has a historical precedence of being anti-Semitic. We're not ignoring that. With that being said, you are stretching the bar when someone's talking about money and politics and they're naming a specific group, which on AJ Plus released a video of the head of AIPAC saying we put 31 million or $1 billion into influencing congressional candidates. Because they said you cannot influence the president with the way that we do money, but you can influence Congress. So it's not a stretch. Like, criticizing AIPAC is no different from criticizing the NRA. It's no different from criticizing Big Pharma. It's no different from criticizing Big Oil. It's no different than criticizing Big Farm, like Big Farm companies that are, one, causing a lot of greenhouse gases, and two, also doing cruel and unusual things to the meat that we're going to end up consuming. Mm-hmm. So the thing that pissed me off the most is Chelsea Clinton criticizing her, I didn't care about. Republicans criticizing her makes me laugh. Y'all supported Trump, and Trump retweeted stuff from neo-Nazi sites. Like, The thing that pissed me off was Democratic leadership.
Throwing her under the bus.
Yeah, Democratic leadership that's always talking about unity. Yet they threw because they celebrated this woman of color who's a Muslim, and they would use her to hide behind identity politics. But then when she says something that's correct,
a moment she's critical of one of their cash cows.
Yeah. When a moment we're critical of someone who's doing wrong, and to quote Martin Luther King, because I quote Martin Luther King and Noam Chomsky and everybody on this show before, it's always the right time to do the right thing, and if I am criticizing someone because they are doing wrong, to quote Malcolm X, I'm for truth, no matter who says it, and I'm for justice, no matter who it's for and against. You are gaslighting and lying if you're saying that what she said is anti-Semitic. But the fact that you had Chuck Schumer 3 years ago go to AIPAC and say anybody criticizing Israel or supporting BDS is anti-Semitic helps this BS continue.
Yeah, and I mean it's worth mentioning that Ilhan and
and Rashida.
What was it, Elisa? I always forget her name. Alyssa Presley.
Yeah, and also AOC and AOC as well.
Yeah, they are pretty much. I think they are the first people in our federal government, in our Congress at least, who actually openly support the BDS movement.
Yeah.
They are, in that facet, they are very much alone because, as you said, this has been the status quo. If anything, this outrage that people jumped on Ilhan Omar about, it really just proved her point. Right. And I think it would be fundamentally interesting to be a fly on the wall to kind of hear some of the conversations that were going on. How many of those were genuine, talking about anti-Semitism, and how many of them were just like, Ilhan, you need to shut up? AIPAC
here's the thing.
Gives us a lot of donor money.
No. But I love your point, and I didn't mean to talk over you. But the thing that pissed me off the most in reading the story is, one, Ilhan shouldn't apologize. I wouldn't apologize. I would have been and when Donald Trump said you should be. Anti-Semitism on any front should not be acceptable. You should resign. When he came out and said that, I would have, if it was me, I would have doubled down. I'd be like, wait, what? Trump
called on Ilhan to resign?
Yeah, Trump called on Ilhan to resign. No. So here's the thing. On the one hand, I'm happy that she did make an apology. She made an apology. She was like, all right, look, talking about money and Jews can't be anti-Semitic. So for those that are offended, I apologize. But let me also be clear. Talking about AIPAC is similar as me talking about the NRA. They are lobbying groups that use money and politics to push their causes. That is not a joke. That's not a punchline. That's real facts. I'm from Palestinian descent. What they've been doing to my people is akin to apartheid. So again, these are facts. So and if I was Ilhan Omar, if I was her, I would not have. If I was her, I would have gave that apology. But then I would have been like, oh, while I'm apologizing, let me hit y'all with these facts, and I would have should drop that video from AJ Plus talking about how AIPAC influences our Congress. I would have noted the fact that you had Democrats like Hillary Clinton and Steny Hoyer, and even Steny Hoyer and Chuck Schumer. They support AIPAC, and AIPAC is a right-wing group. But you want to know someone who doesn't support AIPAC? Bernie Sanders, who's Jewish. So I would, if it was me, I would have absolutely, unequivocally been like, are we going to have this conversation? Okay. No. Since the spotlight's on me and we're having this conversation, and also, to the Democrats, y'all are full of BS because you're not being honest about what I'm saying, and you're gaslighting. To Trump, and this is what I would have did. To Trump, you said that the people at Charlottesville were good people on both sides, and you had neo-Nazis that were wearing your memorabilia that killed somebody. You have people who you have a person wearing a MAGA hat who shot up a Jewish synagogue, and that same kind of authoritarian right-wing terrorism, white supremacist terrorism, is the same type of terrorism that affects my people in Palestine. It's also the same type of white supremacy terrorism that shot up 9 black people in black churches. So do not come at me if we are going to have people resign because of anti-Semitic things that they have said or quote have done, which I did not do. Are you going to resign for? And I would have laid out the bucket list of him retweeting neo-Nazis, him calling Jon Stewart by a Jewish last name, him saying that the alt-right and alt-left had good people on both sides, him going to the conservative Jewish council and saying that you people like to negotiate, y'all people always love to negotiate. Like, what? Yeah. Like, what? If I was Ilhan, I would be like, okay, since the spotlight's on me, everybody's about to get this work. And I dare you to try to find somebody to primary me. I want all the smoke.
Oh yeah, and that brings up like one of the most absurd, Ripley's Believe It or Not aspects of modern politics is that you will have white nationalists and conservative Zionists in the same bucket, kind of working for one another, versus people on the left, or even leftist Jews, or people like Ilhan, who, she'll get thrown under the bus for pointing out, just pointing out the corrupting influence of a foreign government's lobby in our Congress, versus, versus Israel, they will fund Ukrainian neo-Nazi groups and get away with it.
But also at the same time, you have people like J Street. J Street doesn't support BDS, but they're far more to the left than AIPAC, and they support Bernie Sanders and Ilhan Omar, and also. This is the same type of playbook that you saw when they ran against Keith Ellison. AIPAC ran articles saying that because Keith Ellison went to Minister Farrakhan's speech when he was 14 years old, that he's somehow not still anti-Semitic. These are the same type of garbage that they've been doing against people who are progressive and are to the left. This is the reason why I and others have been saying the Democrat establishment is not your friend. They will backstab you because they have a financial interest too, and they do not support your policies because they want to keep their own power. And the Democrats, and because of the fact that you have actual neo-Nazis and actual anti-Semitic people who were a part of Trump's administration, Steve Bannon. Okay? They supported Steve King. The Republicans have no room to speak on this issue. You supported Steve King. Y'all supported Roy Moore. Dude, come on, son.
Well, I mean, do as I say, not as I do. Been the Republican line for some years now.
I swear to God that if I was ever in that position, I know that it's easy to say because I'm not in that position and I'm not at that federal level and I'm not in Congress. But if that was me, maybe it's just because I have no tact and no class, and she's a much more classier person than I am. But if that was me, y'all trying to box me in? I don't think you understand the severity of this situation. I'm not locked in Congress with you. You're locked in Congress with me, and since you put the spotlight on me, everybody's getting this work. Since y'all want the smoke, proceed to get your lungs filled with the smoke session. Okay, that is how this is working.
Oh yeah,
because that's exactly how I would have taken. Not only would I have doubled down, I would have not only would I have doubled down, I would have called out. For example, Keith Ellison didn't vote for Iron Dome when the Gaza Strip incident was at its highest peak. I would have called out how AIPAC influenced, money influenced that. I would have called out the fact that AIPAC supports these candidates, and I would have also called out the fact that how is BDS anti-Semitic? I would have went on TV. And I would have been like, answer this question for me. And this is how I would have framed it. Okay, we all agree nobody wants terrorism. Nobody wants violence. Everybody wants peace. The former prime minister of Israel said that what was going on in Gaza is akin to apartheid. And I would have quoted him because he actually did say that.
That's true. Yep.
I would have been like, okay, so nobody wants violence. That's off the table. So that's number one. Number two, let's bring up the facts that Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel's policies have continued to devastate the people of Palestine that are a part of that country. Let's look at I would have did the Mark Lamont Hill thing and said these are the facts of the situation. Number three, since this is a fact and you do not want and Palestine cannot go to the United Nations to help in refereeing this situation, and you have people who do want a two-state solution or a one-state solution where everybody is equal, right? What is the next thing that you and you say that BDS, which is a non-violent way of protesting, is unacceptable, then what do you want the Palestinian people to do? Do you want them to just be happy with their subjugation?
Well, ideally, I think that's what they would need. Yeah.
If that, is that what you want? You want them just to be happy with their subjugation? Because they're not. And we are not, and then we're not moving towards peace. If that was me, I would have fought back.
To be real, cynical and honest about it, a lot of recent Israeli policy is they would just prefer the Palestinians not exist. I mean, what they're doing in the Gaza Strip, for instance, is tantamount to literally starving out an entire population and keeping them in an open air prison. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Under international, again, and I would have brought up the fact that under international law, what they're doing is illegal. Mm-hmm. But this is what you're justifying, and you're saying that me bringing this up is anti-Semitic. Please explain how. Mm-hmm. I want you to defend this. I want to hear you defend it. I would, that's if that was me. Oh my God! If that I know that's easy for me to say because you know what I'm saying? We're low level radio cast right now. You know what I'm saying? That's easy for me to say, but boy, my boy.
So yeah. So I wanted, while we were on the topic of Ilhan Omar, I just saw this story today and I loved it because it was the establishment Democrats tried to put this woman in the doghouse, and instead of going in there, she's like, I am going to go maul the hell out of Elliot Abrams. So let me tell you all a little bit of context here, and this is related to Venezuela. So basically, Donald Trump's envoy to Venezuela after the attempted coup started, this guy named Elliot Abrams. This guy does not have a very good track record. And in fact, as far as we try to talk about Venezuela, it's hands off Venezuela. We do not need to intervene in there. All of the motives of the people in charge are insidious and economic, and they do not give a single iota of crap about the actual destiny or
the people
of Venezuela. And Elliot Abrams is proof positive of that. This is a guy who's well known for his support of U.S.-backed massacres and genocide in Latin America in the 80s, his role in the Iran-Contra scandal, which, by the way, just a little side note, I wanted to talk about a specific piece of propaganda that's been making the rounds in mainstream media. There's this idea that there's this particular bridge from Colombia that they suddenly blocked off, and they're blocking off all aid, and the narrative is Nicolas Maduro is this evil tyrant who does not want his people to have aid. There's two components to that. One, that bridge has actually been blocked off since 2016. Had to do with ostensibly different reasons. But basically, the bridge itself it's never actually been used, and it's basically like this foreign policy thing between Venezuela and Colombia. They view Colombia as a hostile actor, so they don't really want an open port of entry. Also, the whole thing with foreign aid, it's really being used as a prop by the American, not only the current empire in charge, but also the media that shares the same interest to say, like, look at how evil this government is. They won't accept foreign aid. However, America is refusing to use a neutral third party to disperse this aid. And historically speaking, especially when we're talking about Elliot Abrams, Abrams is actually, in the historical record, he was shown basically using U.S. aid to supply Nicaraguan guerrillas with arms. So the very same guy who did that is currently the special envoy to Venezuela. So yeah, if I were Nicolas Maduro or somebody in his government, I might also be a little suspicious of U.S. aid.
I mean, dog, if I was Nicolas Maduro, look, I don't like Maduro. I don't like him at all. But at the same time, he survived the assassination attempt of a drone that tried to blow him up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have no sympathy for the man. I do not like the man or the way that he does things. But at the same time, if I'm supposed to accept foreign aid from a country who literally said that this person, that 80% of the people of my country do not know who that person is now president. And I'm supposed to accept aid from that country? Like,
yeah.
Like, okay, so that's like your neighbor. That's like your neighbor telling you, you're not the head of your house.
Mm-hmm.
This person who lives down the block is the head of your house.
Mm-hmm.
Or the squirrel that lives that's at your house, that's in your yard. That's the person that's the head of your house.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, we're gonna come and cut the grass at your house. I'll be like, if you don't get your, I'll be like, boy, get your boy.
It's kind of like this, like, you or I, we don't really like Donald Trump, but we would not want, like, say, would we want, like, I don't know, China or I don't know, what's another geopolitical
like
force
would we want China or Canada or Europe? Like, or UK, Ireland, Germany would be like, hey, we don't agree with you. We don't agree with y'all. You know what I'm saying? We don't agree with Donald Trump as president. We want Nancy Pelosi as president. And hey, America has the largest prison population in the world. We're sending foreign aid to help out the prison population. Why won't you accept it?
Yeah, and again, like, it completely robs, Venezuelans of their autonomy in the sense that their politics are complex. Ours are complex too. You can't just boil it down into like this bite-sized because like you've got people in Venezuela who are part of the opposition. The opposition is so broad that one of the main problems in recent elections is that like the government has actually a hard time figuring out which faction of the opposition they should be negotiating and talking to. Not only that, but even within the Venezuelan left, there's a lot of diversity. There's a lot of like Chavistas who don't like Maduro and who are basically against him from the left. You have people who are with the party who are strict, like we're part. This is a continuation of the Bolivarian Revolution, and it should be noted, even if this coup was successful, there's about 6 to 8 million of those folks. So you're talking about like there is no clean way for this coup to happen whatsoever, especially with somebody like Elliot Abrams in charge.
Also, let's also please note for the historical fact and context that the United States putting crippling sanctions on the country does not help the people of the country. If we really cared about foreign aid, that we would have stopped these sanctions that we have put on them years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
If we truly cared about foreign aid, this is how you know that we don't give a flying F about foreign aid.
Yeah, and it's also a very recurrent propaganda tactic of the United States, where they basically create a problem and then say, "Oh, look, we're going to solve this." So, like a lot of these sanctions are causing the food shortages, and so they're coming along saying, "Oh, hey, here's this aid,"
I mean, America's been doing that for years. Look at the whole thing about voter fraud. Voter fraud literally doesn't exist. And when it does happen, it's done by Republicans. Yeah. But what do the Republican legislators?
I want them to vote for Trump twice.
Make
it great again times 2.
So what does our GOP legislation does? They use voter fraud as a justification to push voter suppression.
Yeah, and just real quick noting, that woman got a slap on the wrist. There's a black woman from Texas who literally committed voter fraud accidentally, and she got 15 years in prison, something like that. Do you remember that?
Yeah, dog. And but there's a white lady that was in Wisconsin, I think West Virginia or Wisconsin, that voted twice. And she got a couple years too. I forgot who the lady is, but we covered the story a while ago.
All right, so I did want to play this video real quick.
Wait.
Again, because this start. Oh, I'm sorry.
Are we not done with the subject?
I wanted to play this video because I started by saying this Ilhan tore into Elliot Abrams, and I wanted to make sure to actually play this clip because it's pretty damn dope.
Oh yeah, I want to see it. I want to see it. I did not see this clip.
Yeah, and even like my socialist heart, where I'm just I don't think reform's going to do it. It is still good to see people within our government who are actually concerned that we are in the active employment of monsters,
right?
Because that is the big bipartisan bird box is.
We support 73% of the world's dictators. Can we stop? Can we talk about this for real? Yeah. We support 73% of the world's dictators. If you don't get
out of here, yeah.
Man, so get your cousin, dog.
All right, so let's play this quick clip. This is Ilhan Omar questioning Elliot Abrams. It does, in fact, get pretty heated. So,
all right.
Thank you, Ms. Omar.
Oh yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for your testimonies. Mr. Adams, in 1991, you pleaded guilty to 2 counts of withholding information from Congress regarding your involvement in the Iran-Contra affair, for which you were later pardoned by President George H.W. Bush. I fail to understand why members of this committee or the American people should find any testimony that you give today to be truthful.
If I can respond to that.
It wasn't a question.
That
was not a question. I reserve the right to my time.
It is not right.
That was not a question.
Committee can attack
on February 8th,
who is not permitted to reply.
That was not a question. Thank you for your participation. On February 8th, 1982, you testified before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee about U.S. policy in El Salvador. In that hearing, you dismissed as communist propaganda report about the massacre of El Mozote, in which more than 800 civilians, including children as young as 2 years old, were brutally murdered by U.S. trained troops. During that massacre, some of those troops bragged about raping a 12-year-old girl before they killed them. Girls before they killed them. You later said that the U.S. policy in El Salvador was a fabulous achievement. Yes or no, do you still think so?
From the day that President Duarte was elected in a free election to this day, El Salvador has been a democracy. That's a fabulous achievement.
Yes or no, do you think that massacre was a fabulous achievement that happened under our watch?
That is a ridiculous question, and I
yes or no?
No.
I will take that as a yes.
I am not going to respond to that kind of personal attack, which is not a question.
Yes or no, would you support an armed faction within Venezuela that engages in war crimes, crimes against humanity or genocide, if you believe they were serving U.S. interest, as you did in Guatemala, El Salvador, and Nicaragua?
I am not going to respond to that question. I'm sorry. I don't think this entire line of questioning is meant to be real questions, and so I will not reply.
Whether under your watch, a genocide will take place, and you will look the other way because American interests were being upheld is a fair question, because the American people want to know that anytime we engage a country, that we think about what our actions could be and how we believe our values are being furthered. That is my question. Will you make sure that human rights are not violated and that we uphold international and human rights?
I suppose there is a question in there, and the answer is that the entire thrust of American policy in Venezuela is to support the Venezuelan people's effort to restore democracy to their country. That's our policy.
I don't think anybody disputes that. The question I had for you is that does the interest of the United States include protecting human rights and include protecting people against genocide?
That is always the position of the United States.
Thank you. I yield back my time.
So yeah, that was Ilhan basically being like, "Sup, war criminal."
Can you please put that on my page? Please share that on my Facebook page. Yeah. My God, Ilhan Omar came at him like a battle rapper, like yeah. Jesus Christ! Like she came at that dude. She was like, you know what? We gonna get to this body bag. Nicaragua, body bag. Guatemala, body bag. Yeah. In El Salvador, you was bragging about body bags being put in body bags. Do you still support this?
Yeah,
she grilled him so good. I swear to God, I thought he was gonna be chicken masala by the time we was done. Yeah. Like that dude. Like Ilhan Omar is so dope with what she just did. She makes me want to convert to Islam. Like that girl is bad. Like that's the kind. See, here's the thing. In Washington, you can be okay with being in a room and talk and being cool with war criminals as long as you are polite. What Ilhan Omar just showed is that you can treat the war criminals as they are, war criminals, and still be polite about it. You are a homicidal, genocidal maniac, and you laughed and celebrated these things, and we're supposed to believe you when it comes to giving aid and or in another similar situation that we have now. And the fact that she called him out and he got hostile for his own BS shows you where we are in our country. But it also shows you this: what other Democrats over the last years has done that?
No, yeah, and I think that's really why I wanted to play this, because I'm like, it is very rare and unprecedented for a lot of these really bad, monstrous actors who work particularly within our national security state to be called out for their actions. I mean, you saw, I'd advise watch the video, because like he gets like really flustered and angry, and it's kind of like Brett Kavanaugh. It's that whole sense that it's like, how dare you hold me accountable for my actions? Like,
I mean, but that's the thing. It's the same thing with Esquire or the Inquirer being mad that Jeff Bezos is fighting back. Republicans are so used to not having accountability being done to them. They're so used to that they're being powerful that no one fights back because they're too powerful. Until you mess with someone who A, has the people on their side, or B, is as rich as you are, and has the power to hold you accountable. Because most people wouldn't do that because they probably take the money from the same people that he does.
Yeah, and I will say, if we get time in the show tonight, I would like to talk about that a little bit more in depth. But for now,
it's same thing with
I think there is a certain irony with Jeff Bezos, getting going out in the public and demanding his privacy when his corporation has probably done more to build the surveillance state apparatus than just about like them, Google, and a couple others have probably done more to create the surveillance state than just about any other corporation in the world.
I think the NDAA Act that President Obama passed back in 2014 or 15 actually does a lot worse. I do agree with you that Jeff Bezos does help facilitate that garbage, but at the same time, them going after Jeff Bezos and saying cease and desist with the Washington Post, or we're going to leak. But basically, the fact that they sent it in an email that they were trying to blackmail him, one is dumb. Was
unconscionable. No,
it's not that.
Yeah.
I said this before. It's like the Penguin went after Lex Luthor, and the Penguin forgot that Lex Luthor is smarter and has more money. Like that's literally what this situation is. There is no good guys in this situation, but it's literally the Penguin versus Lex Luthor. And Lex Luthor is basically like, I don't think you understand who you are messing with, but you gonna learn today.
Yeah.
That's literally what it is. And the fact that that's the thing that made me laugh about it. And also, I don't like Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos' policies when he's talked about political policy is absolutely horrible. I don't like Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos was forced by Bernie Sanders to pay his workers a living wage.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Bernie Sanders, Ro Khanna, and a ragtag group of progressive policymakers, the Amazon would still be paying their workers a subpar living wage. So it makes me laugh. It's hilarious. But also what's hilarious is the fact that we have so we jumped to two different things. But the tie-up on Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar is a truth teller. I'm glad she's there. I was upset that she voted for PAYGO because Nancy Pelosi is going to use not only PAYGO to help destroy progressive policies, but she is a true progressive, and I'm glad she is there. Also, within the same token, you have to be able to hold people accountable for their actions, no matter if they are friendly to us or not. And that's why I love her. Also, with the Jeff Bezos thing, bruh. We're gonna have to go to break real quick because I gotta use the bathroom. But we can talk about some other stuff before I gotta dip out.
All right. So this is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution.
Stay tuned for Wider's weekly RSO Spotlight on WIDR Kalamazoo.
Hi, my name's Tori. I'm the president of the Criminal Justice Student Association, also known as CJSA. CJSA is an RSO on Western Michigan's campus that establishes a network among students who have an interest in criminal justice through events and speakers. We meet every other Monday at 7 p.m. in the Bernhardt Center. To find out more information about the Criminal Justice Student Association, follow us on Instagram at WMUCJSA.
This has been our weekly RSO Spotlight on WIDR Kalamazoo. For more information on how to spotlight your RSO, head to WIDRFM.org.
I'm definitely, I would definitely respond to this.
We're just talking about some the public square a little bit.
No.
The Facebook, well, social media is the new public square. I guess.
No, I know. And also speaking about the public square, I need to talk about a few things. One, I need to talk about Cory Booker. Now, Cory Booker was getting ripped apart online because of his comments talking about blackface. I'm not gonna sum up the whole thing because you can go on YouTube and look up the video and see what he said for himself. But he was basically saying that we need to have compassion for white people who do not understand that blackface is a problem, and we need to put ourselves in their shoes. This is a problem. This is problematic because we act as if we do not understand in America the historical context of blackface. Now there's also a thing going on. It's called I also talked about this on my Facebook page too, which is blackfishing, which is different but still also problematic in reference to white women who enhance their features to look more exotic and more black. People talking about Ariana Grande. People talking about Rachel Dolezal.
Can we start? Let's start like at the basics and then work our way up.
Yeah. No, I got you.
Let me play. I was gonna say white devil's advocate, or in this case, like play the pretend I'm a white person who hasn't read a damn history book. So,
okay.
All right.
Okay.
So Lawrence, how is it any different from say the Wayans brothers dressing up as white chicks and white chicks?
Okay.
How is that not racist, Lawrence?
Okay. I'm glad you said this because I actually had to have this conversation.
By the way, I have black friends. So
no. And I had to have this conversation too. Recently. Okay. So, blackface. Blackface was designed to do two things. One, dehumanize and humiliate black people in this country for the propaganda and profit of the white oligarchs that controlled our country. It was a way to look at our features, our culture, our people in America, and to say, look at these people. They are not like us. They are subhuman. So the policies that we are putting forward to subjugate them or to treat them as not equals is justified. That's how blackface that's the basic history of blackface. And also we act like and also when I talk to my friends who are also white, look, y'all act like we are in a country where slave masters wasn't raping their slaves, and that was not a legal thing that they could do. It was legal for white slave owners, white male slave owners, to rape their black slaves. Yet, it was outlawed that a white woman could not sleep with a black man because it was impure to the white race. So, when we look at blackface from a historical perspective, and also looks at it from a not just a historical, a moral and economic perspective, it was always created to push the propaganda of darker skinned black descendants from slaves, Americans that are descendants from slaves, as lesser than. That is it. Nothing more, nothing less. So when Cory Booker says that we need to take this perspective, or that we need to have empathy for white people that don't know, okay. For anyone who's under the age, for anyone who's a middle schooler and under, y'all get a pass. Anybody who's in middle school and younger gets a pass because they don't know. By the time you hit high school, you've had Black history classes. You've had teachers that's talked about slavery. You've had people that talked about Jim Crow by the time you hit high school. So if you are high school age, so 13 and up, you don't get no pass.
So I will say though, Lawrence, just because like I know we both grew up in KPS schools. I mean, there are a lot of school districts like in rural areas, especially like particularly racist areas, that they don't really want their kids knowing this stuff, and they really don't feel they don't really put any energy into teaching it.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, granted, we have the internet, so
No. But again, that also goes back to my point. Google is your friend, folks. Like this is not like the thing that pisses me off is that we act as if we have not lived in a system of oppression or systemic racism throughout our history. We act like when black people say people do not believe black feelings, people do not believe black stories. Do you think that when black people's been saying for hundreds of years that police officers have been unjustifiably cruel and unusual in killing us, do you think that every black person that was saying this was lying?
Some of them do. I remember talking to a very Becky-ish person once about this, and it's like, oh, they're all lying. Please don't kill them that much. And I'm like, it's like they think everything is about race, and I'm like,
because everything is about race in this country.
You just said that black people as a diaspora in the United States are all lying about police brutality. I think that's kind of racist. And then I was like, ah!
No. Here's the thing. And this is the thing that pisses me off the most. This is the thing that I find disrespectful and just disrespectful and dishonest. We're acting as if the people who are doing blackface, the people who are choosing to do blackface or dressing up in KKK hoods, like the Virginian governor, because that's what he was talking about. We act as if they did not know what they were doing. He was in medical school when he chose to do that. By the time you're in medical school, you are already an adult. You're paying bills. You've read some history lessons. Like, he's 60-something years old, so that means he saw the civil rights movement happen. He saw the Jim Crow, and he saw these things happen, and he chose to do so. He chose to do blackface or be in a KKK hood, probably because he agreed with them. Let's not forget Virginia was a part of those Southern Dixiecrats that turned into Republicans after the turn of 1964 because of the Voting Rights Act. Like, they turned to Republicans because they agreed that black people were lesser than. So let's not. Let's not go there. And the thing that also pisses me off, for context, is that Cory Booker irritates my soul right now. Not because he's not a good person. I believe Cory Booker wants to be a good guy, and I believe that if he was getting into politics now after AOC, he would be a much more stronger progressive. He hurts my soul because he panders to the feelings of the oligarchs more than the feelings of his people. I'm not talking about black people. I'm just talking about people of the proletariat, the working class people. And that's the thing that pisses me off the most, because Cory shoveled snow of his constituents. He ran into fire, into burning buildings. These are actual facts. To save people. Like, Cory Booker is a bad boy. Like, that dude's dope. But at the same time, he's also made a career of apologizing for the oligarchs that oppress us, and fighting on behalf of the oligarchs that oppress us. I cannot in any way, shape, or form agree with Cory Booker when he's had a history of it. And this is, like, for example, I'll give you a prime example. Article came out in The Intercept. Lee Fong and some other people, I think, wrote it. Talk about how Cory Booker celebrated Betsy DeVos on bringing charter schools to New Jersey. So, like, a little under half of the public schools that are in New Jersey are schools that are in New Jersey are now charter schools, like 43% or something like that. but they defunded public schools to make sure that those schools were being funded, and they haven't had better educational outcomes because of it. So he's destroyed public schooling for people who are living in the district that he says that he represents, and that negatively hurts the proletariat, working class people, and also people of color. And you're doing it for for-profit reasons, because charter schools are private schools that are being publicly funded, and they are for-profit entities. So it's upsetting to me that then he also, during that time, 2011, praised Betsy DeVos for what she was doing in Michigan and Wisconsin, when she was literally fighting to destroy the schooling systems in our state. So for me personally, I can't rock with it.
Yeah, and I wanted to, kind of like, so bring this into the idea of like strategy going into, like, if you're thinking about like who would be best at, unseating President Jack-O-Lantern. It reminds me of 2016 in this way. It's a misreading of the electorate and the issues that are critical and important to their hearts at that particular moment. So looking at Cory Booker, his two biggest liabilities are his past capitulation to Big Pharma, and of course how he has spent a lot of his career pushing charter schools. At this moment, Medicare for All is basically, of all the prime progressive policy planks, enjoying the most widespread support, enjoying the greatest insurgency. Whoever's gonna become the candidate, it's really going to help if it looks like they have been sincerely behind that from the jump. Cory Booker doesn't have that. Also, let's look at the fact that in the last few years, teacher strikes have basically been the tip of the spear when it comes to radical labor action in this country. The Los Angeles teacher strike basically just secured a big defensive blow against a charter school system that was basically trying to wipe them out. Now, to have somebody run against, say Donald Trump, who has been basically in lockstep with somebody like Betsy DeVos on that issue, because here's the deal, and I think here's something that's worrying me. And granted, I'm a little outside of this as somebody who's a socialist party. I don't really dabble in these electoral politics anymore, but I'm gonna tell you right now, if you are a reformer, you're gonna need somebody doesn't matter the incumbent. It is hard as hell to knock out an incumbent. You got to be real slick. You got to be really inspiring. If you don't do that, you are not going to be able to knock them out. And even I know a lot of people are just depending on how much Trump poops the bed to get just about anybody through, but don't. Because again, that's what they thought last time. It's like, this guy is so bad, there's no way we can lose. And well, lo and behold, so. Yeah, that's what I think. And I think you could say similar stuff about Kamala. For we've really turned the page on criminal justice reform in this country, almost to a point where there's almost like a bipartisan rejection of that kind of war on drugs punishment model.
But also, to give credit to where credit's due, because we have to be fair. Cory Booker's policies on criminal justice reform, absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Kamala Harris back in 2014 was laughing, saying that legalization of marijuana was her opponent's opinion, and she was still prosecuting people for drug possession. But now, when she went on the Breakfast Club, she's for legalization of marijuana. So.
She also, again, she really needs. This is going to be very important in the forthcoming election. The ability to travel through time. That's a big vote get.
But the point that I'm getting at, but the point that I'm getting at is that people evolve. I'm happy that people are evolving. I get that. But also at the same time, we have to be honest about, we have to be honest about people's records and hold them accountable. I love Tulsi Gabbard, but Tulsi Gabbard's foreign policy is absolutely horrendous at times. On certain topics. Her talking about Assad in Syria, I actually agree with her. on that Assad's not a threat. He's not trying to bomb Oakland. Like he's not trying to bomb New York. Not in any way, shape, or form. So he's not a threat. But her other ties though, I do
with Narendra Modi is probably the most alarming to me. Very far right Prime Minister of India.
That's a problem. Corey's ties to Big Pharma, to Wall Street is a problem, and Kamala Harris's her prosecutor record and her DA record. She advocated for locking up parents for truancy, and she laughed about it. And this is the problem. This is the problem that I have. When I saw that story and I saw the video. She even said, so these are her words, that she was getting pushback from her own people, that what she was going to do and what she was advocating for was extreme and was crazy, but she chose to do it anyway because she had, out of her words, she had a stick, the school system had a carrot, and she wanted to throw around some of her political weight. That is BS. So you're not going to look at the humanitarian issue of why are these kids not going to school? Maybe because there's not enough buses. Maybe the buses cost too much and their parents can't afford it. Maybe the parents are working 2-3 jobs and they can't get their child to school. Maybe the public bus, school bus that's supposed to get to their house, maybe it comes at a super inconvenience time, or there's not enough buses to go around because there's so many kids. There's multiple ways that you could look at that crisis of truancy and look at it for the humanitarian crisis that it is and try to work around it. You chose to lock up the parents. You chose to actually lock up parents. Is that parent losing their job because they were locked up helping out the kids? If them parents losing their job and then they lose their house going to help the kids? Did you ask or advocate for school buses to waive the fee, or maybe that the fee that they're going to pay for students, or maybe like 10 cents or a quarter? Did you advocate for that for public buses? No, you didn't. You chose to lock up the parents and you laughed about it, because that shows intent. That shows that you chose to, and also the bigger issue, when you chose, because she did choose to lock up people, who were the people that were probably most likely going to be affected by this? Poor, disenfranchised people, most likely people of color. That is the issue. That is my issue, and that is one of my many issues with her. Now, again, because I want to be fair, she has advocated for very similar issues that Bernie Sanders did. She is a co-sponsor of Medicare for All, even though she's walked that back. Elizabeth Warren has also started to walk that back too. Started to use mealy-mouth words. Like when you start hearing access for all. When you start saying access for all,
affordable is another.
When you start hearing affordable or access for all, these are mealy mouth words that people are using to not push for progressive policies, and they are going to either compromise to a public option or something else. Now, here's the thing. I was for a public option when we were doing Obamacare, because Obamacare was the best that we were going to get, and that was a right-wing healthcare plan. But that's not what we want now. Americans overwhelmingly want 70%. In last poll that I saw, Pew Research polls, last poll I saw was 76% approval rating for Medicare for all. 76%. Over 88% of Democrats want Medicare for all. If you are calling yourself that you are going to be the Democratic candidate, and you say that you represent the people, and you are going to represent your base or your people, and 52% of Republicans want Medicare for all.
52.
Okay. So for those who are not political junkies, are going to end up listening to this. When your opponents, when more than half of your opponents agree with an issue that your overwhelming base agrees with, It's done. It's no longer. It's no longer. It's no longer a discussion. It's about what are we going to do next. Like that's no longer a discussion. Push the issue through, vote on it, and make sure that your representatives represent you. Here's the problem. As Nancy Pelosi's aide showed in the Intercept article, that they are going to push to make sure that Medicare for All doesn't happen.
Correct.
That is the issue. But also, the issue is, if Nancy Pelosi and the establishment are not going to push for it, will Kamala Harris or Cory Booker or the other Democratic candidates fight for it? My guess is that a majority of them are going to say no. Tulsi Gabbard might do it. I think if Warren stops listening to her political consultants, she will do it. But she showed that she listened to her consultants. She needs to fire them because her political instincts are good. Her political instincts are good. It's just that when she listens to her consultants, she is a horrible person. She's a horrible candidate when she listens to her consultants. But the only person that is going to push for that is Bernie Sanders. Like, I'm sorry. Like, Corey's not going to do it. Kirsten Gillibrand's not going to do it. Amy Klobuchar's not going to do it. Joaquin Castro is not going to do it. The only other person that might do it out of the group of people who are running for president is Andrew Yang, and I don't even like half of Andrew Yang's policies. Like, if we're going to be honest.
Yeah.
But nah, dog. Like, Corey bothered the absolute mess out of me, and also what bothers the mess out of me is the idea, I gotta end up going because I'm running late, but just the idea that we are not going to call things for what they are, and we will gaslight because we are trying to push an agenda is what bothers me the most. That's truly what bothers me the most. But I gotta go.
All right. Well, Lawrence, again, big thanks for coming on to the show today. And when we come back, we're going to finish out the show talking about some very recent news about a chemical spill here in Kalamazoo. And then we're going to have an update about what's going on with our friend Issa Smith. We ended the show last week by playing a long play interview with her. We're going to do a little bit of an update on where she's at this week and how the community can help. So, y'all listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution.
Hey there, Rider listeners. Know what's even cooler than supporting Radio Evolution? Driving safe in the winter.
So listen to Zia's tips.
If you want to drive safe. Keep a safe distance from other drivers. If you find yourself sliding out of control, turn into the skid to regain control of the vehicle. And if visibility is low, go slow. Don't be afraid to go under the speed limit if you have to. Last but not least, stay warm and keep extra blankets in your trunk or back seat in case of emergency. This has been a friendly reminder from Wider.
Hello, y'all. We are back. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. So, I wanted to read this article. This is some breaking news, just came out today. I'm not going to have too much analysis on it, but I did at least want to make sure that we included it on the show, because this is some very important news about our drinking water, our health. So, this article is published today around 12:45 p.m. Toxic chemicals enter river from Pfizer wastewater. Human error caused almost 7 times greater than the city's standard for methylene chloride to be released from Pfizer facility at 7000 Portage Road in Kalamazoo's water treatment plant on November 1st, 2018. The toxic chemicals made it more difficult to treat ammonia at the wastewater plant for 5 days and entered the Kalamazoo River, prompting action from the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality. According to the EPA, short-term exposures through the air or skin contact can result in harm to the central nervous system and even death. Methylene chloride is a solvent used in consumer and commercial products like adhesives, pharmaceuticals, metal cleaning, chemical processing, aerosols, and paint and coating removers. Pfizer spokesman Sally Beatty said final products do not contain methylene chloride. The incident is considered an accident, according to documents acquired through the Freedom of Information Act. Pfizer notified the city that it was the source on November 8th, 7 days after the spill, after results came back for samples taken during its monthly self-monitoring process. So at least you could say Pfizer wasn't trying to hide this action. But I will kind of expand a little bit later. There are some issues with this that I definitely wanted to talk about. Pfizer spokesman Sally Beatty said the company completed corrective actions required by the city of Kalamazoo, including an explanation of actions taken to prevent further violations and additional monitoring. Basically, they described it as a Pfizer employee bypassed an alert that would have prevented excess methylene chloride from leaving the facility. So it was human error. So I'll go down a little bit. So wastewater effluent limits are established by toxicologists to protect aquatic life in local rivers. DEQ environmental quality analyst Terry Shattuck said the discharge was determined to be harmful to aquatic life at the time of its release. Long-term effects of the spill are unknown, Shattuck said. The spill caused the city to exceed effluent standards for methylene chloride set by Michigan's Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act. Documents show Pfizer was unable to determine the amount of methylene chloride released or the exact location where it was discharged. City estimates 2,693 pounds of methylene chloride were released. DEQ officials required the city of Kalamazoo to work with Pfizer to take corrective action through its industrial pre-treatment program. A DEQ inspection of the city's wastewater plant will occur later this year. Methylene chloride limits set by Kalamazoo for wastewater entering the system include a daily maximum of 10.5 parts per million. Pfizer discharged 70 parts per million in 1 day and had a monthly average of 8.8 parts per million last November, which is a little over twice the limit made by the city, which is 3.8 parts per million as a monthly average. So, documents show Pfizer discharged high amounts of methylene chloride into the wastewater system November 1st. The Kalamazoo Water Reclamation Plant started experiencing issues treating ammonia the next day, according to city documents. Baker said the plant became less efficient due to the reaction with methylene chloride. Wastewater plant was removing 99% of ammonia from wastewater before the spill, but was removing just 65% of ammonia 2 days later. The plant did not exceed any effluent standards for ammonia, which can cause irritation through skin contact. So you have one particularly harmful chemical and one lesser harmful chemical. But there, you can see how like these chain reactions lead to these processes. Now, granted, I'm not going to sit here, behind my microphone saying that I am an expert engineer or an environmental analyst. I can't really bring that kind of expertise to the fore here. What I can say, though, is that we certainly need to make sure that, just as an aggregate, we are seeing stories like this across the country, across the world, really, of how a lot of our chickens have come home to roost. The toxic chemicals we use to facilitate modern life. Early in this article, it talked about how many standard products this is in. Adhesives, pharmaceuticals, metal cleaning, chemical processing, aerosols, paint, coating removers. The cost of convenience and modern life is literally poisoning us. Now, granted, this isn't the worst act of environmental discussion that's happened around here, even in so many years. But still, I think it underscores a very important point about what life is like now in our stage of capitalism, that in order to sustain the lifestyle of consumption that is currently more or less forced upon us, we have to cede towards these processes that literally poison the air we breathe and the water that we drink. All right, so we're going to take a very quick break. When we come back, we are actually going to be joined by Issa Smith to give a little bit of an update on her current housing situation. So, y'all listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. All right, y'all, we are back. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program. So we're now joined by Issa Smith. If you tuned into our program last week, you should remember as the young lady I interviewed about her housing situation with My Own Home, local nonprofit that's really putting her between a rock and a hard place. I wanted to invite her on again this week to basically give our listeners an update on what has been going on with her situation since we last talked. So hello, Issa. How are you doing tonight?
I'm well. How are you, Andy?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. So we were actually talking a little bit earlier, and I wanted to hone in on a couple things here. So
feel free.
So from what it sounds like, at least temporarily, the community has kind of rallied around it, and you're finding at least somewhere to live temporarily. But I wanted to something that really struck me hard was talking about trying to get an extension from My Own Home, and they denied it to you. So I was wondering if you could explain the circumstances around that, if you feel like doing so.
Oh, that's fine. So I met with City Commissioner David Anderson, and David Anderson went out of his way to do try to find a way to basically get us to stay in the house until we could figure out other, situations. So that was more beneficial instead of being out in the cold snow. So he called them. I guess they contacted the courthouse, or I'm not sure exactly who all they contacted, but David Anderson definitely spoke to My Own Home, Community Living Options / My Own Home, and they denied the extension. They said, nope, we want her out. So then they said if she's not out by midnight on Thursday, then we'll have the sheriff put her out in the snow.
Yeah, and just to be clear, this extension was going to be about, less than a month?
Yeah, around a month, because tomorrow is the 14th, so all of the different things that need to be put in order for trying to apply for a different program would have been squared away probably mid-March. Hopefully sooner. We won't know until the gentleman that's doing it gets all the documentation he needs from me, which hopefully will be shortly, and then we'll have a better idea of how long I'll actually, be looking at.
Okay, so next I just want to ask, again, there's kind of two aspects to this story. There's the larger, local politics angle, and just the direct more thing, you are a person who is in crisis right now, and you need people to reach out and offer what they can. So I was, you sent me that list earlier. Just if people want to help out, again, your situation, you're being kicked out of your house in one day, if I'm correct.
Yeah, you are.
Yes. One day after Valentine's Day, people. What the heck?
It is on Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Happy Valentine's Day, Smith family.
Yeah, really. So I know you're kind of starting to raise funds for certain needs, but could you tell folks, what are some of the things that you are in need of right now, and how would folks get a hold of you if they wanted to help?
Well, they can. I'm not sure. I have Facebook. So Facebook is a little more challenging, and it's not good for everybody. You're more than welcome to share my number with whoever feels that they want to assist, and then they can reach out to me that way. Our main concern is, so I was gifted a van, and I went out and purchased the back brakes, but I don't have a mechanic to install them. And then the van needs a tune-up, and it needs an oil change so we can transport the kids safely back and forth to school, since they will not be provided a bus at the motel. And then the other thing is we need queen size jersey cotton sheets, because who wants to sleep on someone else's sheets in a motel room, even if they've been washed? That's just a lot to me. Yep. So we need a couple king size down alternative comforters, some new pillows. There's a particular dog. I have a few dogs that are going with us, therapy dogs. Really the only thing they need, they have leashes, they have food, they have everything. If someone wants to provide some gift cards to Pet Supplies Plus, that would be amazing. But I sent you that link for the dog bag So that's the main thing, is so they're not sleeping on the hard cold floor. What human wants to sleep on cement? So let alone your best friend. So the next thing is we have Finished Morning Laundry. It has laundry cards, and I have one. Just funds, someone could load some funds on that so we could continue to keep our clothes clean. We're definitely going to need assistance with like gift cards to local restaurants that are in the area, like gift cards to Aldi's, because Aldi's is generally the best price. It's amazing. If someone has a mini fridge, that would be great, because they do not have fridges in the room. They just have, I do believe they have a microwave, and then I was going to take an electric skillet with me, but or if somebody can purchase a hot plate, that would be great. Other than that, we need new clothes, because we are leaving pretty much everything behind. There's a certain kind of laundry soap that I use because the kids have sensitive skin. It's an Arm & Hammer OxyClean stuff, but with the odor blast, which works really well. It's nothing major, nothing extremely extravagant, just basic stuff. So.
All right, and if people want to donate money, what is the best way to do that?
The best way to do that, I guess they can just call me, and they can come to where I'm at if they like. Mm-hmm. And then they can meet the person that they're assisting. That might be the best part, because I honestly would like to thank people in person. It just seems so impersonal to have someone go out of their way to assist me and not even be able to thank them in person.
Okay. What if they want to help you out, but they're too socially anxious to leave their bedroom, and maybe they want to do it via like the internet or their phone?
So Emily,
Demarest. Yeah.
Yes, Emily has a PayPal that's attached to her Facebook. That's attached to the message that Emily sent you this morning. That's the other location that's easiest for people to donate to.
Mm-hmm. And I did want to just clarify, because I will probably be putting an ask out for this later. There's nothing hinky about that. The reason we're doing it through a friend instead of GoFundMe is that money can basically get pulled out faster. And again, this is everything we're talking about here is very time sensitive.
Yeah.
So kind of moving on from that, one of the things we talked about in our own private conversations is kind of just how outrageous it is that something like this is happening in the first place, and I also know kind of some frustrations about how the activist media ecosystem here is either like supposed to work. You had that article pop up in MLive a couple months ago, as you said.
It was October of last year.
Yeah, and it didn't really translate into direct action from the community.
It didn't bring any action at all. People read it, and the comments that people put on the article were horrible. They degraded my family. They degraded me. I mean, it was. If I wasn't as strong as I am, it probably would have sent me through the ringer, because it was just absolutely horrific. I mean, I don't understand how anyone can be that callous, but hey, people are.
Stay out of the comments sections. There be trolls.
Warning shot.
Yeah.
Trolling.
And we also talked too about we've talked about your issues here with My Own Home, and I think like the two really important takeaways from it are one, you are certainly not alone in this. There are tons of other people that face egregious similar kind of actions from their landlords or their property management company, and I think too, like, it's important to emphasize, a lot of people have talked about like, oh well, shouldn't we should put these in the hands of like nonprofits, and I think it's important. Your story is illustrative in that even if it is not somebody working from a profit motive, things can still go wrong and injustice can still occur, and I was wondering if you could kind of speak to those points for a little bit.
So honestly, our best bet is to start a renters union. That's what really needs to be done, because then we have clout behind us. There's definitely probably people that would join us and attorneys that would like to get on board, because then everybody can come together and voice what's happening with their landlords, what challenges they have, what needs to be addressed. I mean, the majority of issues in this community are, a lot of the landlords aren't even local. They live other places. They have these management companies or people they've hired. I mean, it's impossible to even get a hold of them to, complain. So, people are at the mercy of someone that doesn't really even have any control over anything. And then you've got individuals like myself who are renting from a nonprofit that only rents to disabled people, who are aware of the fact that the disabled population, they can exploit them because we don't have a way to fight back. I mean, I contacted so many different attorneys, and not a single attorney would help me because of the fact that this is a nonprofit in Kalamazoo. And it's terrible because my own home is run by the director of community living options, Sierra Ravelli, and she makes, I don't know who all saw the article, but she makes over $100,000 a year. She created my own home in order to pay herself more money. But the homes that they have are just, this is the worst one. This home was condemned in 2010 for method. They just let it go. I mean, we just put $10,000 into this house between myself and people all over the United States. Some people even donated to fix up the house in Germany. So, I mean, they really went out of their way because I was told if I didn't fix the house, I was threatened that I was going to be evicted. Well, hey, and if I opened my mouth and spoke, told the city inspector about the conditions, I was going to get evicted. But I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I mean, the conditions of the house were so unsafe that if I'd left my home, the house could have gone up in flames, and then what? I was responsible because I didn't open my mouth, so...
Well, and I do really want to commend you again for, being such a loud voice. I mean, I understand, I wouldn't wish the circumstances of this issue upon anyone, but I really do want to thank you for being an advocate for frankly, a lot of people who could be in this situation and really don't have the ability to step out and really tell it like it is, like you have. Again, My Own Home in particular, it is a program for people with mental and developmental disabilities. A lot of people might be too anxious to really talk about this the way that you have.
Yeah, I kind of got to the point where if I stayed quiet, I was going to continue to suffer. I mean, really, it didn't matter what I did. I was risking my family's safety. If I spoke, I was risking eviction. So either way, it was going to be a negative, challenging outcome. So, I mean, but my family came first. So, I mean, we had flames shooting out the outlets, plugged in stuff, sparks. We were getting electrocuted. I mean, this house is deplorable. A video really, what I would like to do is, you're supposed to be coming over tomorrow at 9 to take a video of the house. So I'm going to post the pictures before I repaired the home and after what the home looks like. And this home has a lot of potential, but I mean, mess, asbestos, mold, roaches, mice. I mean, this whole house is really old. I mean, we did so much to this house. Within a couple of weeks, the walls were cracking, paint was falling off the walls, and hundreds of hours of remodeling, and it just was such a waste. And I mean, it was nice in a way because I wasn't as sick. My family wasn't as sick, so I'm grateful for that. But I think the money that people assisted with, I feel really guilty for the fact that they helped when that money probably could have been put to better use without this, because the only reason people donated was because I was threatened with the event of eviction, and so I wanted to make sure I didn't, and lo and behold, it happened anyway. So it was like, oh my gosh. So I'm very discouraged because people were so kind and so helpful fixing me. I mean, people brought $2,000 worth of cupboards, sinks, front door, back door. I mean, people donated so much stuff, and the thing that irritates me the most is literally everything they donated, like the beds and all. We can't take any of that with us because of the contaminants in this home. It's not safe. We don't want to contaminate another home. This house is disgusting.
Oh, again, Issa, so sorry that you're in this predicament, and I just want to let everyone at home, just another reminder, that's Issa Smith on Facebook, ISSASMITH. You could also hit us up at the Hoodrat page if you've got any questions or want to offer any assistance. Again, Issa, thank you for taking time to talk with us on the show, and hope that...
There's one more thing. Right now, we're trying to scrounge up the money for the cut fees and the motel. We don't know how long we're going to be there. So right now, there's kind of a few different individuals in the works of trying to scrounge up money. But if anybody is willing to, right now the pet fees, it's $15 per day per dog. So it adds up. So that's the main thing. I have some other people that are offering to help, but I mean, it's going to add up significantly. So, I mean, that's my big thing. If somebody wants to donate that would be amazing, because that would take the pressure. I would really like it to be more of a community effort than depending on just one person or the other. So then the pressure is not completely on the individual. So that's one more thing. If people want to assist with that, there's a lot of animal lovers out there.
Mm-hmm. All right, Issa. Well, thank you very much, and have yourself a great night. And I also want to thank all the listeners out there for tuning in. Again, every Wednesday from 6 to 8, and we upload all of our episodes on the YouTube. Until next time, keep on fighting for that revolution solution.